All right, we are recording.
All right. So today's class is pretty unique because I felt like almost every slide that I made is an entire class that we've taught in the past. So this is a really big overview on how to avoid computer viruses. We've had several classes on here. We've had one just for passwords. We've had one just for how to back up your computer. And so there's a little bit of scope here from everything from things you can do before you get a virus, things you can do to prevent getting a virus, and things you can do to try to help you if you get a virus. So we'll go through. I kind of tried to make a top 10 list, which is something I do pretty often, and then threw in some pictures just to break up the slides a little bit, and then covered some details. So Colin, there'll be some stuff in here that if you want to demo as we go along, we can go through on the screen. I don't know how easy it is to do on Zoom with multiple screens and screen sharing versus the presentation, but if there's anything along the way that you want to see executed, Colin's really good at demoing and sharing his screen. Everybody's pretty familiar, Bob, Mary, Tom, Margaret. I think I've seen everybody in a class before, but just a quick upgrade or update. So I don't actually work for Mankato Computer Technology, but I really like hanging out there and going there and talking to Colin and the owner, Wes. They help keep me computer healthy and computer savvy as much as possible. They're a great company. They've been incredibly helpful and friendly. And if you looked at my basement right now, it probably looks like a NASA Space Center from back in the day, because there are monitors everywhere for all the computers that Colin's helped me build and make it through. So I started this class kind of on the story that my mom would call me in the middle of the night. And my mom is 20 years older than me. She's about 64. And she'd call me with questions at like 11 o'clock at night where it says, my computer says click OK to continue. What do I do now? And it was like, click OK to continue. And while I felt those questions were a little ridiculous, I realized not everybody has somebody they can call to ask that question. And so I know Colin is an amazing computer tech and answers really high-level network and software questions all day. And I do electrical estimating and bids all day. So for me, I have a nice fresh mind to start answering computer questions in the evening, where I know it's not always easy for somebody that does it for a living to do for their friends or for the community. So just a little bridge of a gap I thought I could fill and try to offer this service for Mankato Computer Technology by providing someone who can answer your everyday questions in a forum that's open and friendly. And then I bring Colin along because he's amazing to look at. He's such a good-looking guy, and he's not shy about using his camera. But no, he's actually super smart. He's one of my favorite people I've ever co-taught with, and he's Johnny on the spot when it comes to acronyms and technology. So just a great guy. It's been a wonderful partnership. We've been going on almost 4 years now, I think I saw the other day. So anything you guys have to ask along the way, please feel free to unmute yourselves and use the microphone. If you feel shy about using the microphone, feel free to type messages. I keep the chat bar open on the side of my screen. If you don't know how to do that, if you hover over the bottom of your screen, there's a little box that comes up like a dialog box in a cartoon. And you can click on that, and it's a chat box. Depending on how you have your screen set up, it might open up another window. It might lock to the right, or I think that it can go all the way over to another screen depending on how you have it set up. But I like to keep it open. You can chat with just me directly. You can chat with just Colin directly. You can chat with each other directly, and Colin and I won't know that you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. And or you can chat with everyone. You can send out a message that everybody can see, and we'd be more than glad to answer any questions as we go along. So with that, we'll move into the presentation. So a lot of people have heard the term virus. A more common term that you might hear now is called malware. Mal having the I don't know, Latin root, I guess maybe Colin can help me with that since he's an amazing writer. Mal being bad, and then ware referring to the software that you're putting on your computer. So bad software that you're putting on your computer. It can infect your computer and cause trouble, from everything from how you store your pictures to where you make money, where you store your money, all of those kind of things. So the first couple of classes we taught, it was sad, but nice to know that this is a needed service, because almost everybody talked about Yeah, I had somebody call me and say that they were from Microsoft and needed to log into my computer, and then my computer's never been the same. Or I had somebody else that called and needed to have access to my machine, said it was running slow, and then I gave them access, and now my pictures are gone or my bank account's gone. So it's not fun. It's annoying. It takes a lot of time to resolve. In my experience with people that I've helped personally with these situations, the police haven't been very much help. I don't think Mankato Police Department has a high technology police officer or somebody to really help when in these kind of crimes. So I had a friend whose identity was stolen recently, and she just kind of was like, they came out and were like, I don't know, turn off your phone, turn off your computer, get a new phone and get a new computer, and good luck. And so it can be very frustrating as well. So viruses and stuff were created, like when people would spam and scam your computer, it was kind of created as something you could do for fun. It was computer guys being like, ooh, how could I get into somebody else's computer, and what annoying wallpaper could I put on their background? But like anything, if somebody figures out that they can make money from it, they get a little bit more aggressive, and that's kind of where we've come to today. So we're going to start off with 10 tips, like I said, to either prevent malware from getting on your computer, or how to prevent people from infecting your computer, and kind of things that you can do from not only preventing the malware, but just to make sure that your data is secure. So a lot of times when our computers start running slow, we go, oh, I must have a virus. And sometimes that can be the case, and you need to be very aware of that. But a lot of times there's just some basic maintenance and tips that you can do that don't have anything to do with a virus, that just cause your computer to get slow over time. Kind of like your car, if you haven't maintained it, or your tires are running low. It doesn't mean you have a, the check engine light comes on, but it doesn't mean you have an engine problem. It could just mean you put in the wrong kind of gas, or you need to change your air filter or something like that. So there's things you can do with your computer to provide maintenance to, and I often spend a lot of time on Sunday doing it. And while I used to think my wife just thought I was like nerding out and finding an excuse not to do things to clean around the house, to like not vacuum and not do dishes, I've come to learn that she's actually really appreciative of the time I spend on Sundays to make sure that everybody's computers are updated and they're running, and that all their junk mail is taken care of. So, and I have 3 kids, and each of them have at least one computer, and my wife has a work computer, a personal computer, a laptop computer, desktop computer. So there's a lot of computers around the house to be maintained. So let's see, some computer programs can be malicious, like I said. Some are just annoying. It's really bad when people start getting stuff that can take over your browser, or worse yet, your computer, if somebody has remote access to it that's not supposed to have it. And so here are the 10 tips.
Hey,
So
Trevor,
knowing, yeah, Mike.
can I just take a moment? I want to make sure we've got some. Jenny is new to the Zoom,
Okay.
so welcome, Jenny. If you want to talk, just want to make sure you're able to be heard.
Oh, thank you.
There you are, Jenny.
All right, there's Jenny. Welcome.
Yeah, welcome to the meeting, Jenny. You're welcome to speak out during the meeting if you'd like to ask questions, or you can type in comments in your chat bar box if you want to. So if you have any questions about Zoom in general, or the material, or something that I missed, or you want to know more about, just let us know, or we can demonstrate some of the things we're about to talk about too. So welcome to the class. So no matter what, viruses can still happen. I always like to credit the really smart stuff I hear to Colin. And I think he gave the one example of, like, if you think of it in like the medical profession, and obviously now is one of those times where we want to create, a vaccine for the virus that's going around. And it's the same thing. You want to create antivirus stuff for your computer, but it's like you can't really create it till you know how it works and how somebody's accessing it. And then unfortunately, just like a real virus, hijackers are changing stuff all the time. So you're constantly having to redevelop it. So while you should have antivirus measures on your computer, you also got to make sure they're up to date, because the virus or the hackers are changing their strategies all of the time. So even if you're staying on top of it, doing everything the best you can, there is a chance that you could still be vulnerable. So it's about limiting your exposure and what kind of things can happen. So things that you can look for on your computer, other than it just running slow or the fan making a weird noise, repeated error messages. So if your computer continues to get an error, if it shuts down unexpectedly, If it suddenly slows down, if there's like no reasonable explanation, it's not like you're opening a bunch of programs or trying to open a bunch of web pages. If it takes too long to shut down or restart, if you have new toolbars or you see something on the bottom of your screen that you didn't install or definitely didn't intentionally install, those can be a very good indication. If your homepage changes, so where you go when you open up your web browser, if you always know that it always opens to Google or it always opens to MSN or ESPN or whatever page you pick, your Hotmail, whatever it is, if your page that you always have set as your default page to open when you open a browser and it doesn't go there, that's a good sign. Your battery's draining, that usually means if you're on a laptop or a tablet, if it's draining a lot faster than it used to, that's usually a good sign because it means a lot of stuff is running in the background or processes are running in the background and you want to limit that. So any of those signs could mean that your computer's infected. If you see more than one of these signs, you probably have a virus. It's a good time to start looking into what you can do. We want to make sure that your software is updated, that you have the ability to perform a scan, and that you can search online for other people that are having similar issues and see how they solve them. Other things that you can do is that's why we have people like Colin and people like Mankato Computer Technology. I probably weekly email them with something that comes across my screen that if it's serious enough that I go, I got this and it doesn't seem right. Have you guys heard of this in Mankato? Is anybody else experiencing these kind of problems? And I usually get really good feedback. So once you start to learn the signs and you know like for sure this is a virus, it's also kind of good to share with them to be like, hey, have you seen this happening? And is it happening in the area? Is it regional? Is it random? So, Colin, I'll need to lean on you on this one at the end of the slide just for which programs you recommend, because I'm really only going to refer to Windows Defender in this situation. So, having antivirus or anti-malware software on your computer is a good idea. Most computers, I would say, especially if you're buying them off the rack, maybe not from stores like Mankato Computer Technology, but if you're buying them from a Walmart or Best Buy, usually have some kind of antivirus. Now, if it's free, let me see if I can remember. If it's free, you're the product, right, Colin? Is that one right?
If you're getting a service for free, chances are you're the product.
So that means like you're providing them your website, your email, and your login information, and then they're looking at how often you use it. So sometimes just because it's free, sometimes there's some great free stuff. Colin gave me a whole thumb drive full of good virus scanners at one point. But if it's just something that came for free with your computer, it might not be the best stuff. But it's probably better than nothing. But it's probably not one of the best options that you have.
The most common antivirus that usually comes from manufacturers like Dell and HP is a trial version of McAfee. And that's typically like a 6-month trial that starts the first time you run the computer. Now, McAfee is an all right antivirus. The definitions are fine. It is kind of a resource hog. So it takes a lot of your processing power and speed to run in the background. So, you know, the nice thing about Windows 10 is there's a free antivirus called Windows Defender, which Trevor alluded to, which if you have no other antivirus installed, that turns on automatically.
So we can go to the next slide, Colin. So antivirus software is a vaccine against virtual viruses. It can identify and eliminate the threat before you're even aware of it. So Microsoft Security Essentials, Avast are both free antivirus programs you can install. Sorry, Colin, if Avast is not one that you recommend. There's also a host of paid options. There's a little link here that is the extra cost really worth it. I've had a lot of luck with just Windows Defender. It comes with Windows 10. It runs in the background. I don't know if Apple, the iOS comes with anything. I recently inherited my wife's Apple desktop in a failed experiment that she really wanted to have an Apple desktop. So I'm learning to slowly figure out how they work and what's on it. But we haven't had any virus problems or anything on that machine since we got it. So Windows Defender is automatic and does a good job. So we can show you where that's at towards the end if you're not aware where that's at in the settings.
Say, Trevor, is it still true? Are more viruses targeting the PCs than the Macs just because of sheer numbers out there?
Yeah, that's definitely the case. For a long time, you know, people said Macs don't get virus, and that was largely because it wasn't a big enough part of the market share. So virus writers didn't bother writing things for Mac platform. The the Mac OS is quite secure, but within the last 5 years or so, we've really started to see a proliferation of viruses that are targeted at Macs. And as a result of that, there are some security programs that will work on both PCs and Macs, including WebRoot, which is an excellent antivirus that we use for our business clients. And then Malwarebytes also has a good Mac utility. So most of the Mac viruses I've seen so far are adware programs or things that, or browser hijacks like Trevor referenced before. So if you've ever gotten a big scary message with, you know, flashing lights and saying that the sky is falling and you better call this 800 number, those are typically from browser hijacks. It's a point of entry for scammers to make contact with you and try to take control of your computer.
And that is one, my mom has called me in the middle of the night with her sirens going off in the background on her computer and just like, I don't know what I did. And she had typed walmart.com wrong. Well, I don't know what the actual address is, but she typed it in wrong and gone to the wrong website and then clicked around and then got her browser hijacked. And I was like, you live down the street from Walmart, like just drive there, like if you wanted a price check. But so yeah, you have to be careful on the addresses you're typing in and being aware of what websites you go to. Make sure you go to ones that you're trusting, and that's a good way to avoid those browser hijackers. So keeping your antivirus software up to date, this is something I talked about. Like I said, I just set a Sunday morning routine that I wake up and when, like, all right, we have 3 kids and they have to vacuum and clean the bathrooms and do the dusting, and they have they have a chore list that they split up every week. And so when I get the vacuum get fired up, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go down and start the computer. So I turn on each computer and I like make sure that they all fire up. I check them for updates. I check to make sure the antivirus is all up and running, and just try to do as much as I can to get those machines moving as fast as possible. So the hard part is if you don't set a routine, a lot of that stuff runs in the background, but if you're somebody that turns off your computer every night, then it's not going to run in the background. Or if you have your computer set to a deep hibernation, it's not going to run in the background. So, Tom, you can just turn off your camera if you want. You don't have to put that yellow flap over the camera. So the other thing is making sure that you have all the updates. So whatever antivirus software that you're going to use, like I said, just like a vaccine, the more stuff that they start to figure out how they're getting into your computer, the more stuff they can protect you from. So they're constantly changing, constantly being updated, and you need to make sure that they're up to date. So depending on which one you're using, like I said, if it's Windows, by just doing a Windows update, it's going to update all of your Defender. Well, I'm trying to remember the terminology, Colin. What does it say when you update Windows Defender? It's like it says updating Windows Defender and all of its latest. Trying to remember what the terminology it says.
Virus definitions would.
Virus definitions. That's
Yep.
what I was thinking. Yep. So that's how it looks for updates. And Windows, just doing your regular Windows 10 updates will automatically look for those. So another thing is just to make sure that you have the latest versions of all the software on your computer. So Windows 10 has an interesting feature that you can update the software and you can update the operating system. So you want to make sure that you're doing both of those. And basically you can update all the apps on your Windows device by going to the Windows Store and looking for downloads and updates. And then you can update your OS or your operating system by going into your settings menu and then looking for Windows updates. So the other thing that's tricky about the Windows updates is, as automatic as it's supposed to be, several of the updates require a restart. So when I'm doing the updates on Sundays, And Colin, I think you can help. Like, isn't there it's like Tuesday? You always tell me that I'm like a day ahead of doing it, of when it automatically does it. Does Windows release the updates on Tuesdays?
Yeah, it's actually the second Tuesday of every month is when they usually push their updates.
Okay. So that's when, if you wait for that second Tuesday, your computer will go, oh, hey, there's a bunch of downloads. For me, like I get one or two, and what I do is I let it download, I let it update, and then it'll say, sometimes it'll say a manual restart is required, or it will restart during quiet hours. What I do is I automatically set it to restart right away, turn it on, check for updates again. When it finally says you don't have any updates, it's like pulling the slot machine and being like, ding, 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 you have no updates. And then I still, after that point, will shut down, restart, check it one more time, and then I feel like it's good to go, because it's amazing how much they're always popping back up. So you want to make sure that you're doing that. Like Colin said, Windows pushes them out once a month on the second Tuesday. I check them every Sunday. I'm used to the old system where they didn't do them automatically, so it's just become a routine that ever since I've had a computer, that's something I do. So software updates can include feature updates that help to resist the latest security threats. These are the major software packages: Microsoft, Oracle, and others. They all make regular updates to their software to help eliminate bugs that attackers or hackers could exploit. So if you're using an operating system from even 3 years ago, it's probably defenseless against virus. So we're in 10 now, so Windows 7, right, Colin? That's the completely vulnerable one now?
Yeah, so support for Windows 7 ended in January of this year, which means Microsoft is no longer pushing security updates to Windows 7. And as a result, the further we get away from that date, the more bugs and loopholes in the operating security are going to be found, and the more those will get shared in the hacker and scammer community. So if you recall, when there was a big cryptography virus that hit Europe a few years ago, the WannaCry virus. I mean, it hit all over the world, but Europe got the worst of it. And what those crypto viruses do is they get onto the computer, they encrypt all of your data, and then they give you a message saying you have to pay some amount of Bitcoin to get your computer decoded. Most of the businesses that got hit in Europe were manufacturing and other industrial consoles that were still running Windows XP. And Windows XP had been out of support for a number of years, but they found this exploit that allowed this virus to spread to millions of computers that were still running outdated operating systems.
So I think, Margaret, you're asking if it's Windows 7, it's time to upgrade. That was that's one of your big stars there. If it's Windows 7, time to move up. So the regularly scheduled scans with your antivirus software seems like a no-brainer, but a lot of us forget to do it. Set up your software of choice, run it at regular intervals. Once a week is a preferred method, but you probably don't want to wait a lot longer in between scans. It's difficult to work on your computer while an antivirus software is running, because it's looking at all the data, and if your data is changing while you're running the antivirus, it like skips and kind of forgets where it was. Things get real choppy. So one idea is to run the software at night when you aren't using your computer, if at nighttime is when you're not using your computer. But this is what I was just mentioning earlier about the problems of scheduling. Like, so if we turn off our computers at night, then that scan's never going to run. So try to set your antivirus software to run on a specific night, and make sure you leave your computer running on that day. Make sure that it doesn't have the automatic shut off or hibernation mode set. Colin, do you have any other suggestions on automatic settings for running the antivirus?
Not really. Windows 10 is pretty good about complaining if you have settings that are going to leave you open. You'll start seeing pop-ups in the lower right-hand corner of your screen saying that, your firewall is turned off, or it's been a long time since you've done a scan. Even if there's a third-party antivirus handling that, Windows Defender will still give you those notifications. So that has that's been a big improvement over previous operating systems, how well the security features are integrated into Windows 7. But yeah, it's if you have a suspicion that you clicked on the wrong thing, or the computer is running slow, definitely start with running a scan.
Yep, and that's again, like that's that Sunday afternoon, like sometimes you gotta sit there and just watch that little blue bar go across the screen real slow, and it's not fun, but it's a great way to keep your computer maintained and up to date. So keeping your operating system current, so this is another part of, besides your antivirus, making sure you have the updates for this as well. So whether you're running Windows, Mac, Linux, or any other operating system, make sure you keep it up to date. Operating system developers are using issues like security patches. These will fix and plug security leaks. They keep your system secure. They keep your antivirus up to date. Viruses and malware are created all the time. They're always changing. And so your scanning software is only as good as the database that's in there. So it's basically like your vaccine is only as good as the latest antibodies that you can put into it. So you got to make sure that you have the latest information. So you want to keep it as up to date as possible. This one gets in a little bit of network stuff, and network stuff to me is a little confusing, so I might lean on Colin for some of this, but most of this is pretty basic, so I'll try to keep it at a entry level, 10,000 foot view. So many of our computers are connected to our files, our printers, or the internet versus via a Wi-Fi connection. You have a modem that comes in your house, then a router. The router sends out a signal. All your devices connect to that signal, and that's how they send data back and forth. That's how you get on the internet. Your TVs and stuff do it all now too. I heard a commercial for a refrigerator the other day, and I was like, what the heck would I need a refrigerator that's connected to the internet for? But that just made me feel old, so I didn't question it. But apparently somebody has refrigerators that have internet.
They have refrigerators that are connected to your Amazon Prime account and will order milk for you when you're running low.
Fantastic. That's exactly what I need. Make sure that your internet requires a password to access it and that the password is strong. Colin can probably tell you, luckily Colin's a really good dude, but Colin can probably tell you what most of the default passwords are on several brands of routers. Colin? Do not confirm or deny the following information.
I mean, there's a one thing. I mean, the passwords for the Wi-Fi networks themselves are usually randomized, but the admin portal to connect to the routers and change settings is typically, in a lot of cases, you'll find it to be the password is just admin and then password or admin. I mean, you can search this by model online to find this information. So one thing is if Consolidated or Charter are coming out to set up your router for you, you definitely want to get them to change the admin password for you. Or if you're setting it up yourself, you'll want to make sure that you're going into that admin portal, the default gateway as it's called, and change that password to something that nobody's going to guess.
So the other day, here's a computer story for you. The other day, my computer was not waking up after it fell asleep, and it did it several times in a row. So I called our tech support, and it ended up, I had to go to this, I think it was the BitKey or the BitLocker, which is like this 24 or 28 digit like alphanumeric code you have to type in. And like you have to do it within a certain amount of time or your computer shuts back down. And my phone kept cutting out with tech support. So it took a whole bunch of times to do it. And after we finally got it done, I just had a giggle because I was like, this is like the password that the Radio Shack guy put on my mom's computer when we went to log into her house. And I was just like, this is ridiculous. Like nobody's trying to hack your network this bad. So like there's nothing wrong with an incredibly strong password, but like if you're ever gonna have visitors and you wanna share it, it gets really annoying really fast. So the solution to that is having a guest network. Most routers these days have where you can create like the secure network for yourself, and then you can create like a guest login, and usually that's exactly the title of it. It's guest, and I would still make it have a password, but make the password a little bit easier. And then that, if Colin, can you explain, does the guest login not have as much access to your network? Is it restricted?
Yeah, the guest network would basically be siloed off on a separate set of IPs. So there wouldn't be any interplay between it's effectively broadcasting to totally different networks. It's pretending that it's two different devices.
Okay.
So ne'er the twain shall meet if you have a guest network, and that's the whole point.
So they're not going to get access to any of the other devices on your network, but they'll have access to the internet.
Right.
Okay.
Question?
Yeah.
So can the normal sign on that we use in our house, and then, if I understood you right, that can have a different password than the guest network?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And then, like, I have a router that has like a 5G setting, and then I don't know what the other kilohertz setting is, but one is for 5G and one is for a little bit less. So one works better in your house and one works better around your house, and you can play with that too. So, and then it also has a guest network on top of that. So it has 3 different networks that you can log in through one different router.
You mentioned something about what they have access to. I didn't quite understand what you were talking about.
So on the guest network setting, your device is all in your house. If they're on the same network, they all communicate on that network. So you don't necessarily want to give somebody access to all of that stuff on your network. So if you give them the guest login, they still have access to the internet, but they don't have access to all of the devices on your network.
Gotcha.
So that can be a secure thing too. Like, so my wife tutors and has people over to the house, and like those people that come over to tutor need the internet, but they don't necessarily need to use my printer. They don't need to send their music to my Chromecast or send their music to my Amazon, or, you know, play their YouTube videos on my TV. So I can just give them access to the guest network, and that way they can log in. They have access to my internet, but they don't have access to any of the devices on my network.
Oh. Okay.
All right. Good question. So you don't want to, this is a little bit trickier setting, and I think if you have good passwords, you don't have to worry about it, but it is a setting that you cannot display that you have an open Wi-Fi connection. So if you pull out your phone and you're at your house and you open it, sometimes you'll see like, here's all the wireless networks you can connect to, unless you live out where Colin lives, and then there's not any wireless internet out there. But if you're at a busy part of like downtown or something, you might see like, oh, I'm down on Riverfront, and from here I can log into Gray Bar's network and McDonald's network, and I can log into State Farm's network, and you can see everybody's internet around a certain area. I know, and I mentioned the McDonald's thing because I know when you're at Cato Karate over there where the old Ace Hardware used to be, you can get McDonald's Wi-Fi signal over there. So you don't necessarily on your home network want to have the setting to say, hey, whoever's in my neighborhood could drive by and see that I have an available network. So that's a setting that you can set on your router. Just one secure way that if anybody was to log in, you'd have to say, they would say, well, what's the name of your network? And you can say, oh, the network name is, you know, Mike at Vine, Mike at the Vine. And then they can type that in and see like, oh, there it is. And then what's the password? And Mike has to tell them, and they can log in the password. But otherwise, if you're like, oh, 334 Pinecone is the password, and everybody in the neighborhood knows that 334 Pinecone is my Wi-Fi network. Now, I don't know, Colin, I don't know any of them off the top of my head, but my kids have been talking about them, like funny Wi-Fi location names. Do you have any off the top of your head? I'm sure you see some in the shop there.
Yeah, I mean, lots of people make little joke networks, or especially in high density student housing, you'll usually see a lot of silly Wi-Fi names. Most of them are too silly to
Okay,
repeat.
maybe not quite appropriate for this audience.
Very true.
So, but you can Google it. It's pretty funny, like funny Wi-Fi names, and it'll come up, and it's entertaining for a little while. So, but my 10 and 12-year-old kid were like trying to come up with funny names, like we should name our Wi-Fi this because then it's funny. And so if you make it public, I don't know, make a goal to make it entertaining, but otherwise it's a nice secure way to not make it public, and then people actually have to type it in if they want to find it. Otherwise, make sure you have a good password on it. So Colin, I don't really know. I know what the acronyms actually stand for, but I don't know the difference in the levels of security, or if there's an easy way to explain between WPA2, WPA1, and what WEP was. Do you have a quick explanation, or should it just be what they should look out for in the settings?
They're just basic. They were basically the security protocols that were set up for the networks in different generations of Wi-Fi technology. Nowadays, WEP is easy to defeat using automation scripts, but chances are your router is not old enough that it would still be running WEP. WPA1 has also been defeated. There are exploits on it. The FBI was warning everybody 2 years ago to stop using WPA. So WPA2 is the gold standard. So I guess if you're setting up a new router and you see the options to choose between WPA or WPA2, you definitely want WPA2. But in most cases, you probably won't have the option. It'll be WPA2 by default.
And if I'm not mistaken, Colin, essentially you could put the same login and password on each of those things. It's just how the router is going to encode it to make it more difficult to get into.
Yeah, it's just how the protection algorithm is structured. So, but you can do the same password for.
Yeah, so it doesn't mean you have to come
any
up
of
with
them.
anything more interesting or creative or difficult to hack. It's just the way the system's going to encode it. So why wouldn't you pick the most high-level security to encode it? We cover the rest of that stuff a little out of order, but we can hit this. So a firewall is included in Defender. If you think of a firewall like a wall around your computer, a virtual wall, it prevents viruses from getting in. So an antivirus doesn't necessarily mean you have a firewall, and a firewall doesn't absolutely mean you have an antivirus. But Windows Defender does have both of those built into it. So Macs and PCs both come with a pre-installed Firewall software. Just make sure that it's enabled. It's going to be in your settings under security, and it'll help keep you protected from them even getting into your system in the first place. Pop-up blockers, Colin, I might need you to help me at the end of the slide with brand names for pop-up blockers, but I'm pretty sure like AdBlock Plus and Pop-up Blocker are some of the popular ones. But a lot of pop-ups or attacks are happening through your browsers. You're going to go to like a website that you normally go to, and then you click on the wrong ad or the wrong link accidentally, and you end up with somebody that gets access into some information into your computer or through your browser. So having an ad or pop-up blocker is essential to helping keep your computer safe from when you're using the internet to browse things that are going on. It'll stop pages from opening automatically that could have bad stuff. So never click on, open, or download anything unless you know exactly who it's from. This is especially important when your emails, which we'll talk about in a little bit, and we do a whole class on, which is kind of our next topic. So Colin, you want to hit on the popular ad or pop-up blockers real quick?
Yeah, so most browsers have pop-up blockers built in now by default, but AdBlock, in speaking personally, is absolutely essential. Not only is it going to clean up your user experience as you're visiting websites, you're not going to get a ton of annoying ads, but it will also stop these hijacked ads from taking over your browser that will pop up with a warning message and is very difficult to get rid of. The main one is AdBlock Plus, that one's available for Internet Explorer, Edge, Google Chrome, Firefox. You can get AdBlock Plus for all of those. It's a good one. It does allow advertisers to pay to exempt certain ads. They have to meet a certain level of criteria that they're relatively unobtrusive, but it does allow the advertisers to pay to get some ads through. The one that I like is uBlock Origin, but that one might be a little less user friendly and easy or intuitive for folks who aren't super tech savvy.
And then just like this isn't really a super high tech thing, but I'm gonna type in this command. If you press the Alt and then the F4 button, that will close a window that pops up on your screen. So if you have a window that pops up that you don't want and you have a hard time clicking on the X, or if you, this is the worst thing, is that they make it so that when you click on the X, new windows open. So like they show you an X, but it's not really an X to close out the window. So when you click on it, it opens more windows, and then next thing you know, there's nothing but windows filled on your computer of bad stuff that you don't want to have open. So if you get to a window and you click on it one time and it doesn't do what you want it to do, especially doesn't close, by pressing the Alt key and then the F4 button at the same time, it should close the last window that popped up on your computer. And usually the most recently opened computer window is the one that somebody opened that you didn't want to have open. So just an old school trick that if you use computers before you had mice, like that was something you had to learn how to do. If you only ever used a mouse, you don't remember that there's keyboard commands that do what the mouse used to not do. So just a little trick. Think before you click. So avoid websites that provide pirated material. It seems, again, like kind of common sense, but if it's like, oh, hey, I know this great place where you can go get a whole bunch of movies for free, probably not a good idea, or a whole bunch of music for free, or somewhere you can download copyrighted pictures or free books, and it doesn't have a subscription or a legit place to enter in payments for copyrighted material, that's probably a good place to pick up virus. I'm trying to think, the old school servers, SoulSeek was a big one, and I was really guilty of using it. I didn't know that at the time that it would carry or leave an open communication between your computer and other computers for people to put viruses on. I don't know, Colin, you remember some of the other ones, like the file sharing software that were really bad for this?
Oh yeah, BearShare, Napster, Share now it's torrents. So now a lot of people use BitTorrenting, but I wouldn't know much about that. That's
so it's expensive, but if you're worried about computer safety, stay on legit sites, stay on Amazon, stay on Apple, stay on, the major movie producers, whoever you're buying. Movies Anywhere is a service I like to use for my movies because it uses several of the platforms and puts all of your movies together in one link. So like if you download movies on YouTube or Google or Microsoft or Apple, it doesn't have agreements with all of the studios yet, but it has a lot of them. And so it makes it one login, one password, and then gives you a great place to look at all your movies. But yeah, it's still $19.99 for a movie and $6.99 to rent it. And it gets pricey, but otherwise stay on your subscription sites, your Netflix, your Hulus, your Amazons. You start getting into stuff where it's like, click here, download free movies. You can get yourself into trouble real quick. With this virus, I haven't seen any official data or talked to anybody really in the tech industry about it, but about 6 months ago, it felt like my junk email filter stopped working. Then Colin showed me a few tricks, and I was down to only getting 1 or 2 junk emails a day again. And I was like, yeah, I finally figured it out. Then this virus hit in like March, and like slowly and steadily now, like I'm up to like 50, 60 junk emails a day that go into my junk email filter. Now, granted, this is like the first, I kept it. I don't know why I still have it. I'm just sentimental, I guess. It's like the first email I ever had that I got probably in like 1995. And I still have it and it still works. It's taking a ton of maintenance, but I try to stay really diligent with it just to be like, I'm going to hold on to it as long as I can. But it gets a lot of junk mail. And I think with this virus and people know when people are at home and people working on computers, I get my typical like Renewal by Anderson and some kind of CBD gummies, and there's like 5 or 6 other products that I'm like, I will never buy this product in real life just because I've been spammed with it so many times. But I'm getting a lot of European stuff lately where I'm like, that's not even in English. Like, why are they sending me that? So I don't know, it might have something to do with my last name or what. I don't know what the algorithms they're using are to send stuff, but yeah, logged in this morning. I don't check my email much over the weekend, and I had like 160 junk emails in my junk email folder. So I'm going through. Go ahead, Colin.
The FCC has reported a marked increase in spam and scammer activity since the lockdown started in the spring, just because it was the scammers knew that a lot of people were at home using computers to do things that they didn't usually do at home. And so one thing that you hear about fairly often are these phony tech support calls where you get an unsolicited phone call from somebody claiming to be from Microsoft or Apple saying that there's a problem with your computer and they need to connect you right away. No tech company will ever initiate contact with you like that. That's not their business model. They don't have tech support who just randomly calls people. If you don't initiate contact with a company, you should assume, if they're reaching out to you, you should assume that it's a scam. Because there's been a huge uptick in that. And I can't remember what the figure is, but I wrote a blog post last week where it mentioned that it was some insane amount, like $5 or $6 billion this year has been spent by Americans with scammers.
So, yeah, Colin, just to quickly mention though, like you guys provide that service that if they were paying for a subscription for tech support and you guys notice something weird on their computer, you would call them and let them know, right?
Yeah, we offer a remote support service for, I mean, that's most of what we do for our businesses, but also we have a subscription service for consumers as well. And if we do detect a virus that our antivirus software can't clean up, we will call you. But in that case, it's going to be me on the phone. It's going to be a person who you can verify works at Mankato Computer Technology, and not somebody saying that they're working for Microsoft in a foreign accent.
The social engineering is really good, and they're going to ask you questions that make it seem like it's legit and seem like they know what they're talking about, and they're going to ask you universal questions and things that get you to say yes. It's all the oldest like con artist scam stuff in the book, but it's legit and it's scary, and unfortunately I know a lot of people that have fallen victim to it. So if you're not paying for the service, nobody's offering that for free. Nobody has the support network to do that. So some other things, like I said, we cover this in a whole class about email attachments. Don't open anything from somebody or a company that you don't know. Don't click on a link in an unsolicited email. That's the cool thing about like Hotmail and Outlook filters, is it will block any links unless you tell it to like unblock all the links and show all the pictures. So if it goes into your junk mail filter, that automatically blocks those features from occurring, and that's why. If you're thinking about opening a link, hover over it first to make sure that the link that it shows you is the link that it's going to take you to. A lot of times it's like, oh, click here to go to thevine.com, but when you hover over it, it's like, oh, go here to weripyouoff.com. So just because, I mean, I can make links on one of these PowerPoint presentations, and you say, type what you wanted to say, and then type the address of the link you wanted to take you to. So it's that easy to create a link in a junk email that you say, make it look like this, but actually take them here. So if I'm saying like, hey, click on your My Wells Fargo account now, and then I say, and when you click on the link, it takes you to my personal website, but on my personal website, my page looks just like the Wells Fargo page. And on that page, it says, now type in your login and password information. And it sends me a message with your login and password information. And then guess where I'm going? I'm going to Wells Fargo with your login and password information. So they do that with Netflix is a popular one. eBay is a popular one. PayPal, Amazon, Sam's Club. Those are just the ones I've seen like in the last day. But there's a lot of popular businesses, Walmart, CVS, you name it. So anywhere that you've shopped, especially anywhere that you've shopped that you've signed up for a card and you have an email address, like they have access to that somehow, and then, or they're just taking a guess of like however many Americans shop at Walmart. So let's send everybody in America a Walmart thing that says, congratulations, you won a $50 shopping spree to Walmart. Click here to like get your ad now. So be aware, it's not true. Nobody's giving away 50 bucks. And then if you have to download a file from the internet, this one's a little trickier. Colin, this one might be above our current pay grade of using an FTP site or a file sharing service to scan it before you run it. I don't know, is there a simpler way to explain that?
I mean, my general advice would be not to use file sharing services for most people, just because
It's more tricky.
there's so much out there.
Right.
The contemporary antiviruses will almost certainly, and your internet browser will usually scan any downloads automatically. But again, you can only have vaccines for viruses that you've already seen. So if it's something new and you're clicking to open it on your computer, there's a good chance that it could have a virus. So just be very conscious about what you're downloading and why, especially any executable files or any email attachments that you weren't expecting.
So the way to tell if a file is an executable file is at the end of a name of a program, there's usually a dot, a period, and then 3 letters. And then so the 3 letters at the end will give you what kind of program it is. So if it's .htm or HTML, that's going to take you to a web page. If it's a .exe, that's going to take you to an executable file, which means it's going to run a program on your computer. If it's a .doc, that's going to open a document. Pictures, there's a bunch of them. There's PIC, GIF, JPG, you name it. And then there's Excel files, and there's a bunch of other ones that if you're familiar with what's going back and forth, you should understand. But that hover over technique is the same for those kind of files as it is for a web page link. You want to make sure that if it's like, oh, click here to open your Excel database, and when you click on it, it's going to take you to a .html page. It's not taking you to your Excel database. It's taking you to a web page where it wants you to enter in the data. So,
Hey guys, is Google Docs pretty secure? Do they do a pretty good job of keeping it?
So I think Google, I'll answer first, Colin. I think Google Docs is pretty secure, but what happens is the social engineering of people saying like, oh, we noticed you're using Google Docs. And then they send you tricky software or they send you a tricky link or something that makes you think like, oh, I'm just logging into my Google Docs. This is what it always looks like. But in reality, if you're looking closely at the address bar or at some other information, there's ways that people try to trick you into providing your Google Docs. But I think once you're in Google Docs, I think Google does a great job with, Colin, I'm gonna say third-party verification, but that's not right. What's the thing that you and Wes always say? It's the secondary verification.
Yeah, two-factor authentication.
Two-factor identification, yeah. So that if you log into Google Docs, it's going to say, hey, somebody in Minneapolis or somebody in India or Mexico is trying to access your Google Docs. Do you want to allow them that or not? Apple does it with GPS, which is kind of cool. Like it gives you a pin of who's trying to log in. It shows you a map and says, if this is you, here's your code. If this is not you, don't give anybody this code. But Google Docs will usually say you can activate two-factor authentication. It'll say, okay, every time you try to log into Google Docs, we'll send you a code on your phone, or we will send you an additional email, or we will call you, or I don't know what all the other verification methods are. But so I feel like all of that's very secure. I just get very concerned because that's probably the most well-engineered attacks I see through my company is trying to get us to log into, and it's usually our Microsoft suite because we recently went to putting everything on OneDrive and whatever. And so it looks like an email from somebody in our company, and it's like, hey, click here to download this latest spreadsheet to access something. And you're like, man, I never get emails from the owner of the company, but this must be important. So you click on it, and then you're like, oh, whoops. And so, then 5 minutes later, the secretary's like, don't open anything that comes from him. It's bad news. So Google itself on a platform, I give high security, but because Google itself as a platform has high security, I think a lot of people try to engineer attacks to figure out how to get you to bypass your own passwords so that they can gain access. Anything else on that, Colin? Did I hit it?
Yeah, you hit it well. I would like to reiterate that the number one thing you can do to secure your accounts is to turn on two-factor authentication. You can do it so like Trevor said, so that it'll send you a text message when you sign in and you have to enter the code, or there's a program called the Google Authenticator app that you can use that uses an algorithm to create randomized codes that you can plug in. And basically what it does is it verifies that even if you're using a weak password that somebody figures out or guesses, hacks one of your other accounts, and then tries different accounts with that password, even if they enter the correct password, they'll need that secondary input. So they would need to have your password and your cell phone. And then the chances are very low that they would have that. So it really is the number one thing you can do at this point to secure any email or other accounts.
Keeping your information safe. So we do a whole class on this with social media and stuff. That's probably the latest one I've seen, and it seems like people are starting to catch on to it, of like the surveys that are like, hey, what's your dog's name? What's your first car you ever drove? What's the town you grew up in? What's the name of your high school mascot? And you fill all this stuff out and you're like, oh, and share with all my friends. Well, meanwhile, all the data you've entered is like questions that they can answer for your passwords for credit cards or other stuff. So Colin has a great story. What was it? Somebody hacked Sarah Palin's account because they guessed her high school and what her boyfriend's name was, which was all public information.
Yeah, they were able to reset the password to her email account using information that was available in her Wikipedia article. So all of her challenge questions for password reset were things that you could just read on Wikipedia. They caught that guy. He's in federal prison now, but but it was easy for him to do it.
So don't do anything to get you famous enough to have a Wikipedia article written about you is the first lesson. Second of all, make sure that your password information that you're not giving it out easily. So hackers will try to access your files not by brute force, but through good social engineering. So it's not always great technology. Sometimes it's just by great engineering. They'll get enough of your information to gain access to your online accounts or glean a little bit of your personal data. They'll continue from account to account, so they have enough of your info that they can access your banking data or just steal your identity altogether. So be cautious on message boards and social media. Try not to use your real name on message boards. Lock down your privacy settings as tight as you can. Try to make things not public. Make it only available to your friends or to people you know. Avoid using your real name or identity on discussion boards. So that's a little bit. I think I got another slide. Beware of phishing scams. There's a link there, so the reported security breaches. They can appear in email form under a legitimate company. The goal is to get you to enter your personal information or click on an infected link that allows access to your computer. Legitimate companies are going to have their own domain for emails. It's an email address that claims to be PayPal or Netflix, but ends with @Gmail. That's a good sign of a scam. Netflix has one that they did for a while that people spelled it NETFLICKS. So that was one, and if you just didn't catch it, that CKS looks close enough like an X if it's the address bar and it's real small. I know there's a realtor in town who had one, and they just changed like a couple, like it's like an R and an N next to each other will look like an M if you type them and the font's just right. So there's just little things that you need to be really careful of when you're looking at, and it's a common scam they do with realtors somehow, like right before, I think it's like when the money's in that transaction period between the person that's buying the house and the title company, like they try to reroute the money before it's transferred to the owner. And I've heard of it in several states now, and to even people that I know that have like all of a sudden they're changing routing numbers at the last minute of the transaction. It doesn't seem like a big deal because you didn't really know what the title company's mission was in the first place or what their contact information was. So people change it, and then they call the real estate agent on the other end and go, oh, yeah, I changed it with the title company. And they're like, what? Why? And like, oh, I got this email from you and it said to change it. And it's like, no, I never sent that. And then begins the process. So the other things that are really good signals of a bad email are misspellings, poor grammar, suspicious attachments, buttons and links. They're not going to invite you to an email with a login and personal billing information. If you want to see some really funny stuff that will kill a lot of your time on YouTube, there's a guy named James Beach, and I don't know if he's sponsored now or what, but like he professionally answers junk email. So he's created his whole own domain name, and every time I see one of his stories pop up on YouTube, it's hilarious. I watched one yesterday where somebody with the same last name, they were emailing him a pool bid, and he wanted to change it where the pool was the entire size of the house, and he was like, yeah, they still didn't get that, like, that they were being spoofed back, so they were still trying to get money out of him for this pool. So here's a good rule to live by. I had a friend that always said this in college that was like, if you can't say hell yes, then say hell no. So same kind of thing here. If you have any doubt at all, don't click on it. Like, better to be safe than sorry. There's not any Nigerian prince trying to forward you $1 million, or you're not going to get a $50 gift card to Walmart. So just be aware of those things, and I think you'll be all right. But watch that James Beach guy. He's hilarious if you want to watch. If you ever wanted to know what happens when you reply to a spam email, he has a whole series on it. I bet there's 15, 20 videos on it, and they're all good. So open Wi-Fi, this is another one to be careful of. Just like we talked about the same reasons you don't want your Wi-Fi to be open, you don't want to invite people onto it. Well, it's the same thing. You don't want to go onto other people's Wi-Fi if it's just open and doesn't have a password. So if you're at, oh, my pictures didn't come through the right way. That makes me sad. When you're at the local coffee shop, library, or especially the airport, I've had a buddy that's been hacked at the airport and like flew from somewhere internationally. When he landed there and tried to log in to watch his movies at the hotel that night, it was like, nope, you have 20 people watching your account, and they were from all over the world. So by the time he was on the free airport Wi-Fi to the time he landed to wherever he was going, they had spread his password over multiple sites in multiple countries, and everybody was logged into his Netflix account watching movies before he even landed in wherever he was going. So try to avoid any of those free open area, no password, no encrypted Wi-Fi, just a bad idea. If you can access it for free, what can a trained professional do with access to no passwords and getting into the network? So try to stay away from those if you can. We do a whole class on this too, is just backing up your files, all of them. You should have your files and data in 3 places: the place where you work on them, a separate storage device, and somewhere offsite, not at your place, like a cloud or at a friend's house is a good idea. Keep your files on your computer, back them up to external hard drive, then back them up into a different location. Something like the cloud is a great idea. Use a backup service. Colin, will let you put a plug in here. What's your guys' backup service, or which one do you recommend?
We resell a service called Live Drive, which backs up all the files on your computer, and it's kind of a set it and forget it sort of thing, which is very nice because you don't have to think about it, and that backs up all your stuff into an encrypted vault in the cloud. So if your computer disappears into a poof of smoke, or if you get a crypto virus that locks everything, you'll be able to recover your files.
Yeah, super cool feature. So go ahead, Colin. Getting close. 10. I promised there was only 10. I did throw a couple slides in at the end just for bonus material, but I did want to just stick to my top 10. Try not to use the same password, especially on your bank account. Colin introduced me to this cool software called LastPass. I'm going to type it into the thing here. And LastPass is a free service, and it manages all your passwords for you. It will also do a scan and tell you if you have strong passwords, weak passwords, if you reuse too many of your passwords too often, and it'll give you suggestions. And it just has one master password. So if you have a really great password that you've been thinking of for a really long time, use that to log into LastPass, and then it will create passwords from 7 to 70 characters long, and it will use all of the requirements that you want. If you want numbers, capitals, symbols, whatever, you can set all of that, and it will reset all of your passwords. I have a hard time. I like using it a lot. I just personally haven't been doing a good job of managing my passwords, so I have several repeats on there that I just need to go through and clean up. find some time on that Sunday afternoon when all my updates go really fast. I'd maybe spend some time in my LastPass app and actually clean up some of my passwords right after I get rid of all my duplicate contacts that I have in all my address books, I think. But it does work really well. I feel really secure with it. Colin, any bad reviews or just good reviews on it so far?
I've only heard good things,
Okay.
really, especially for folks who have a ton of accounts, and it's just very difficult to, have 30 unique passwords for all your different logins. It seems like a win-win.
Yeah, and it's free for up to like 30 accounts or something, which is a lot, and it's more than most people should have probably. But it's not much money. It's a couple bucks a month if you want to have like unlimited access to as many passwords as you want and incredible support, and then some of their like A+ options of it, running all your passwords once a month for you and doing some other things. So I like it. Colin recommended it. I tried it. I'm a big fan. And my friend that got hacked, this was the first thing I told her to do was like, go to LastPass, have it change all your passwords, like spend the time, spend the money, go through it, because it's not worth it the way she got hacked. So the same thing as email addresses. I did run into a customer one time that he was building a house and he literally just created a house email. So it was like housebids@gmail.com or something instead of his first name and last name. And that way he knew all the vendors and all the salespeople and everybody were just going to be sending their stuff to this account. And so he wasn't going to be getting ads or anything else to his personal account that he'd had for a long time. So if you're one of those people that compulsively puts your name on the little slips at carnivals or at the mall when they're giving away a free car, have an email address that's not your everyday, this is the email address I communicate with my parents on or whatever. I have a Gmail address, and that one's very strict of I really only use it for if I'm looking for jobs or if I'm communicating with somebody professionally. And then I have that original Hotmail address that I created when I was in college and signed up for credit cards and every other dumb thing college kids do with that address. But that's also why I get like 120 junk emails a day, because I've had that email address and signed up for so many things with it for so long. So my Gmail, I get no junk mail at all, because I've never used it to sign up for anything, and I've never used it other than communicating professionally with people. So it's possible to have a really clean email address. It's just you have to be diligent about it. Never use it to sign up for anything or log into any stores or any of that other stuff. So email addresses can be easy to see and steal. If you use the same password for everything or on many things and it's discovered, then it only takes seconds to hack your account. The target password thing is one. I think a couple years ago, like a big database of target login, credit card information got stolen. If it was logins and passwords, and they try to take your login and password from Target and then put it on your Wells Fargo and put it on your Amazon and put it on your Netflix. This is how the hackers work. They're looking for similar things for your logins and passwords and going to try it on as many platforms that are going to be as beneficial to them as possible. So they're going to start with your banks and your credit cards and everything else, and they're going to move their way down to your Amazon account and your Netflix account and then your PayPal account, anything like that. So try to keep everything changed up as much as possible. Wes, the owner of Mankato Computer Technology, says if you have online banking, you should check your bank account every day, just because. So don't do it at a free coffee house Wi-Fi, but log in from a secure place, check your balance, check your credit card statement, whatever you have, and just make sure that everything looks legit. So best way to keep track of it and keep on top of it. Like I said, we do a whole presentation on this, but use a strong password, lowercase, uppercase, numbers, symbols. Keep it easy to remember and difficult to guess. I think I read somewhere that it's like keep it like your underwear, keep it clean, but change it often. Don't use dates or pets' names. Those are just like Colin was saying, that Wikipedia story. Don't use anything that somebody could research.
Hey, Trevor.
Yeah.
Couple of questions. So what was the name of that software that you were using for passwords?
LastPass. I
Last.
typed it in the comment section.
Okay, I guess I don't see that.
Oh.
The other thing is, well, maybe I'll just leave that for the end, for a couple of questions at the end.
Okay. if you want to type it in a message to me, Tom, while we're waiting, you can send it just to me and I can work on it, or send it to Colin and me. If you don't want to send it to everybody right now, you want to, if before you forget it, because I know I'd forget about it if we kept going. So
Where do I do it?
if either of these are, if any of these are your passwords, these are the top 3 in 2018. So if your password looks like any of those, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or password, or all the way up to 7, 8, 9. I made this joke with a guy that was watching me put this presentation together. He goes, I always just stop at 4. It's like, it's always just 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm like, all right, that's from that's from our tech division too, which I thought was funny. So people wonder why we have security breaches everywhere. I've been in several sites. Colin's probably been on sites where, and honestly, if you went to my computer right now, my passwords are on sticky notes at the bottom of my monitor. But I have too many to remember, and work is hard, and I can't use my LastPass for my work account. So if anybody wants to file a permit for the city, they could use my password to log in and file a permit, I guess. But so avoid using the same username and password combination across multiple sites. If they can hack one site, you've left the door wide open for the rest of your data. Trying to remember what I threw on here at the end, Colin. I threw just a couple on that I was trying to, just if you're here in this class, but you may have kids that use your computer, or a spouse that uses your computer or uses their own computer, just tell everybody, give them the Cliff Notes version. Don't tell them they got to spend an hour and a half listening to my presentation, or that they even have to go onto the website and download it. But try to share any highlights that you get while you're having coffee with your buddies at Casey's or whatever you're doing. If you know people are using computers, try to drop these hints to them as much as possible. If they want to learn more, they can go to the website, they can download the presentation, they can call Colin. Make sure that everybody's taking as much opportunity. And if you have young kids too, make sure they know, and then have them go, if you have grandkids or whatever, have them I know, Grandpa, but I try to remind my kids all the time, hey, this is safe, this isn't safe, this is good, this is not good. It's constant reminders, it's good stuff. So take a few minutes of education, it'll save yourself a lot of trouble down the road. Much of the defense is just going to start with you. Like I said, a lot of it's social engineering. It's not super high-tech stuff. It's people calling you, it's sending you emails with common questions and common information. Use your antivirus software, make sure it's active, keep it updated. The more stuff you put on your computer, the more you have to lose. I had a good friend pass away that I've had since I was in the 6th grade, and his wife asked for pictures, and I'm like, I don't know. When we hung out, we didn't have cell phones and we didn't have cameras, and I don't really have any pictures of them. I have to figure out where any 35 millimeter film I used to have is. So, but nowadays, I don't have any 35 millimeter film of my kids. Everything's digital. I've had an iPhone since my kids were born. So every picture I have of my kids is all on a digital camera. So that's become a big change. And the more I put on my computer, the more places I want to have that backed up and safe. So keep those basic precautions. And is that the last slide, Colin? Yep. So with that, I only ended about 15 minutes early, but if you're sick of staring at the screen like I get sick of staring at the screen, you're welcome to call it a day. Bob, Mary, Margaret, Ginny, it's great seeing you. Colin, I miss seeing you. I only get to see your pretty face when we do BNI together, but I know when my Zoom calls are over, I can't wait to log off and go have a drink or go do something fun. So I understand if you want to go. If you have questions, feel free. Colin, you got Colin and I for about 15 more minutes, and we can answer whatever tech questions you may have.
Okay, I'll bite.
All right, Tom.
LastPass. How many different accounts can you have?
I think it's 30 for free, and I think it's unlimited if you pay the subscription.
Well, I guess what I was getting at. So you could have one, and your wife can have one, and your kids could each have all, and they're all totally separate?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or you can also, you can scan secure documents into there. You can create just a template, like a text pad, and have your passwords handwritten in there. The cool part about LastPass is what you do is you install on your browser. It's the LastPass application, and then what happens is you log into it on your browser, and then you get these 3 red dots, and whenever you're on a website that has a login and password you have saved on LastPass, you can just click on the red dots and it'll automatically fill your information out for you.
Hmm.
So I don't know. Can you see the specs there, Colin? I actually can't read it.
I'm trying to see
Get the short version of,
how many.
yeah.
I know the free version is a lot though.
Yeah.
It's more than most people need.
Yeah. And you get the premium for 30 days to start. So I would say take advantage of the premium while you have it, because like I said, it does that, like, do a security check and do a cross password check. And so it gives you like red light reports and green light reports. And so, you know, if you do it and you get a green light, sweet, all my passwords are good. If you get a red light, then it tells you like, oh, you should spend some time like changing a couple of these passwords because they're not good, and use the same one like 15 times.
Okay. So
So
along with that then is, okay, so if I set up LastPass and have it going in that, and I set up my Gmail so it uses the password that I came up with that I installed in LastPass, does it then automatically change it later on, or do I have to do
no,
that?
you have to verify everything that you wanted to switch. So
Okay.
I kind of hoped it would log in and do a couple of them automatically, especially the ones that I have like repeats of, because like I have ones where it's like, what's your login name, your login email, your login something else, and so like each one of those can be different, and then depending on which point in time they were created, because I'm a password regenerator, that some of them were different. So depending on if I auto type my login versus if I auto type my login email versus if I auto type in something else, it'll be like, nope, that verification is unidentified. I'm like, oh, which login do I have to go back and use? So yeah, it won't recreate anything. And then, and it does have a feature, like, because that's hard too, like, so we have the Roku TV, which is a smart TV. Or if you're one of those people that has a smart refrigerator, maybe you have this problem too. Is like, to log into your refrigerator, now all of a sudden you need to know your password, and your refrigerator doesn't have LastPass on it yet. So like, how am I going to get my password? So there's an app, and you click on the LastPass app, and then you go to the program that you're logging into, because it sounds like smart fridges use Amazon. And then so you can click on your LastPass and then go to Amazon and then say, show me my password. And then you can see the password, because if you had it automatically generate it, and you're like, yeah, generate an 18-character password with symbols and letters and numbers and capitals and everything else, you can have it, you can show it, and if you needed to text it or copy and paste it, there's other things too, but at least you can look at it and then type it into a different device. So I run into that on my Roku TV all the time, where I'm like, I could have swore I logged into the whatever network 10 times, and it's like, nope, it's not on this TV anymore. I'm like, well, it's automatic on my phone because my phone has LastPass, and it's automatic on my Chrome browser, but I was like, how do I get it onto my Roku TV? And then you got to pull one of those devices out and look at it. So like, if you have a device that doesn't have LastPass, it doesn't do you much good. But like,
Yep.
So I think your fridge and your Roku and a couple other things. But as far as using it on my phone and using it with the Chrome browser, it's been awesome. You just run into that gap where it becomes so automatic, you stop forgetting about your passwords, and then you go, oh yeah, like I created a password and I don't know what it is. Like, I just said LastPass, do it.
Okay, so that brings up another question then. So I bring up Gmail, and I've taken the password, I put it in LastPass. When I bring up Gmail, then do I have to type in something, or is it automatically done?
You can set that either way that you want.
Okay.
You can set it so that you have to push the button every time, or you can and have it automatically generate it, or you can push it, set it up so that it just automatically logs you in.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty slick.
Okay, I'll have to try that then.
Yeah, I like it a lot.
I have another question. Well, I don't work anymore, but like you do, you have a work email address, you have a personal email address. And in my case, I have the personal, and I also want to set up, lack of a better term, a junk email that nobody knows who I am, doesn't know anything, whatever. How do I set that up on my tablet, computer, phone?
I would use Outlook. That seems to be a really great way to manage multiple email accounts, and then you can view folders and stuff. What I would caution you on is that many people will reply to a message on like from their anonymous account, and then but their default account is their personal account.
Yep.
So now all of a sudden you've replied and generated an email to somebody you didn't want to know who you are from an email that obviously shows them who you are. So
Yep.
I'm a member of a conservation club, and we've created an email address that's like, oh, hey, this is, at theconservationclub.com. And then the president was replying to somebody and was replying about a discipline matter that they did not agree with, but he accidentally replied from his work email. And then that person wanted to take out actions on him personally at his place of business, which he happens to be the owner of, instead of keeping it within, he made the mistake of replying from his work email instead of from that email. So
You can
you got some magic on it?
Well, you can create as many Gmail accounts as you want as well. If you want to do it from a browser, basically, when you're signed into Gmail, you'll always see, this little letter up in the upper right-hand corner. And if you click on that, and if I had a second Gmail account that I was signed into, it would show up here, and I could switch back and forth between the accounts.
Yep.
So that's probably the best way to do it.
Positive hint or a positive tip on that is that because you're logged into Chrome, your LastPass app will work whether you're logged in as Gmail number 1 or Gmail number 2. LastPass will still work because you're logged into Chrome, and it's a Chrome app that you can put on there.
Yeah. What I was kind of thinking about is using like I haven't looked to see if it's out there yet. It used to be like your Yahoo or something totally different than Gmail.
Yeah, I mean, hotmail.com, or rather outlook.com, you can go to outlook.com and do and create a free account. Yahoo, same thing. There's a lot of.
What I was thinking is that, like, I use my Outlook app, like, at home, and my Outlook app at home has my work address on it, has my Hotmail address on it, and
but you need Office Home and Business for that, which is $249.
Or a monthly subscription.
No.
Yeah.
$99, right?
If you've got 365, yep.
So that's why I use that Outlook, and I like it. I like that feature. It works really well.
You can also set up multiple email accounts in the Windows 10 Mail app. So if you wanted to set them up in the Mail app, you could set them up in there and then view multiple accounts.
Again, Colin?
So on any Windows 10 machine, there's an application called Mail.
Oh, okay.
And it's just a real basic mail app. It looks a lot like, or it looks similar to Outlook. It doesn't have as many bells and whistles, but it is free, and it's probably already on your computer.
Yep. I guess I just haven't looked there. So
yeah, if you have a Windows-based tablet or an Android-based tablet, those should all be on there as well.
So when I switch, normally I use my Gmail account for about everything. But when I want to go looking for, and I don't want anybody to know who I am or anything, if I switch to whoever at Yahoo and I sign up for something, because you have to in order to find any information, will it still know that I'm at such and such at gmail.com?
I mean, it won't have any association with your other email address if you're using the new one to create an account. That's not to say that, your internet service provider, the network admins, it will show, or the people, the website you're logging into, it will show an IP address for like where that interaction is coming from. So it's not going to be anything totally anonymous, but it won't link back to your other email.
Okay. I was just kind of curious because I signed up for Pinterest and I was looking at different things, and all of a sudden, oh, you've been locked out because you didn't follow our privacy and we won't let you back in, but yet there is no way of using the app. So I uninstalled it, reinstalled it, opened it up, and it right away looked, oh, you're at blah, 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 blah. And like, you're locked out. You can't do anything. So it's evidently looking at some of my accounts, that's what I was wondering. If I switch accounts on the laptop, is it using just whatever stuff that I don't want anybody to know me?
Yeah, if you create a brand new email account and then a new Pinterest account, it should let you in.
Okay. I'll have to try that. And I have no idea why they locked me out. They said they sent me an email, but I never seen one, so I don't know. Okay. I think I'm probably good for a bit. So I do appreciate the information.
Sure. Anybody else? Margaret, you've been mighty quiet today.
Thank you for the information.
Sure, Jenny.
I'll go over that previous lesson on the
Okay.
computer, and then I'll know what kind of questions I need to ask.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah.
And you can get a hold of Mike or Colin directly, and I think Colin will probably send you out an email too.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
It looks
Colin,
like we're gonna.
I have a question for you, Colin, that relates to something. It's actually from my mom, from a computer they bought for you guys that maybe you can help answer.
Okay.
From my mom.
It looks like we're gonna get booted here
Oh.
at 7 though, Trevor.
Okay, so it was just that she bought a computer from you and the warranty is saying it's expiring. And I was just like, let the warranty expire. Like it's a good machine. Everything's been fine. Like there's not a problem, but she's worried, like the wording of it. She's like, well, I have to take a screenshot and send it to you because she's worried that when the warranty runs out that she won't have access to something or something like that. I don't know. Is there something on machines that you guys sell that have like the manufacturer's warranty? Is there anything she should be worried about renewing the warranty, or is that more like a scam spoof kind of thing?
No, it has a 1-year factory warranty. If she wants to extend it, she certainly can to cover hardware failures. But there's no services associated with that warranty that would
The computer will still function 100%.
Oh yeah, yeah, it'll be exactly the same.
Okay, that's what I needed to tell her. Well, good night, everyone. Thank you so much. We look forward to seeing you next month. Mike will talk about the topic for next time.
Thank you.
One last question.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Night, Colin.